Yeah, we might have lost him signal wise. He was having some rotoscoping earlier with like his like camera and stuff. Like there was like obvious fragmentation in the signal, but I don't know if it was just because his computer decided to crap itself or whatever the case may be. But he just kind of poofed.
It happens. We have technical difficulties here all the time,
That's why
which
it's
is
called
why
technical difficulties.
why the
Hey,
start time is always like set for 5:05 or 6:05, or it's to allow for those extra couple, couple bits.
yeah. Here's a question for you guys, and this is going back to the whole VR, like slash AR slash metaverse kind of question here. Um, if a company was to make a headset that is as light as a Fat Shark HDO2 set of goggles, but has all of the same features as like the Valve Index, but it costs like $3,000 to adopt in. However, you have support for life and you have a guarantee that the system is going to be at least as good as the Index. Would you jump in on that token to buy something like that?
No, because no matter how good the product is, there's always going to be something better, and at some point, that standard isn't going to be the one that wins. Do you remember Microsoft's HD DVD?
I
I do
do.
remember that.
I mean, we remember it because it came with our Xbox. No one actually bought this thing on purpose.
I remember it was the next big competition between HD DVD and Blu-ray, and that was the
Yep.
whole thing. Like, and do you guys remember in Tropic Thunder when like the nerdy guy's just rambling to no one in particular, and he's like, and then it came down to porn, and whatever porn picked is what like was the standard that was adopted.
Yeah.
And there's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's some study out there about like how much the adult industry drives technology, and like, hey, they're creating this gigantic demand, and how many streaming codecs or whatever we're all what I'm getting at is that, like, who really knows why one was adopted over the other. It was just the one that we knew because it's in our generation.
Yeah.
Now,
I
since
think
we are
one
talking
thing.
about VR here,
Oh,
Swarm, you fly FPV. Obviously, it's in your name,
sure
kind
do.
of a giveaway. What goggles do you use?
HDO2s, but they're modified, so they're not the standard stock, just HDO2 with the 5 volt like header that's on the top for whatever accessories that run off of 5 volt.
Mhm.
I instead swapped it out for a 12 volt connection so that I can run like RGB and Arduino hats on it, so I can just have like flashy goggles and whatnot. But it doesn't
Nice.
modulate anything in regards for signal, so it's just those goggles, rapid fire module with custom purple faceplate. I actually got that hydro dipped by Andy, who actually does the hydro dipping for the rapid fire modules. Great guy, by the way. And then for the battery, I'm just using 18650s, but they're high caps and they are in a custom 3D printed enclosure that I have in the back of my head strap.
So now, with FPV, obviously the graphics are better because it's real life.
Yep,
But we're
absolutely.
basically playing VR outdoors.
Yeah,
It
no,
comes down to it.
that's yeah,
Like,
100%.
I think this is what's missing from the current VR system is until it is as good as real life, there's always going to be something else that's better. Like go for a bike, go for a bike ride or
No,
something.
I would agree with you on that. Absolutely. I think one thing though that kind of sets FPV and VR apart though is that within virtual reality, you're literally building a reality around the headset so that you can be immersed within that, space. But with FPV, you're literally seeing what your flying sees. Like you're in obviously there's going to be different configurations for FPV. You've got FPV drones, FPV planes, flying wings, cinematics, cine whoops. The categories will go on and on and on, but each camera has like its own unique like use case and stuff like that. But I think all of that competition with like, Foxier and the rest of the guys that do like, the runtime cams for all of the, FEV modules for, Cadex Vista and the rest of them are focusing too much on making a product that is high quality, but not one that's going to stand up to the next standard when they release their next product. because the runtime 2, which is what I ran on my ducted 6-inch drone for, I think it was like 2 years before I decided to switch over to FPV to DJI Digital, was the Run 2, and its theoretical resolution was 720 by 690, some weird like rando 720p resolution, and it worked. It did what I needed it to do. It was a clear enough picture, well, to some extent, because I was running analog at the time. And I liked the camera, but the one thing that I had said was, wow, only 720p for a camera that was released in 2020. That's really what we're focusing on, is making them small, not better quality. So to this day, I still kind of run with higher megapixel like sensors for the run cams now, but at the same time, it's like, pick a side. Do you want something that's going to look good and also transmit good? Or are you just trying to build a product?
I mean, it's still new. It's just like VR. It's still so new. Like, I mean, it's been around forever, right? First FPV guys was in the 80s. First
Yep.
VR stuff was in the early 90s, or, more commercially available. But it only has been good for the last like 3 years. And, the way it is right now, I wish that a VR company like Facebook, as in Oculus, was making my FPV goggles. They're better at it.
I would disagree a little bit, but I will tell you why in just a moment. There's a little bit of
My thought on
that you
it
can
here
trade onto.
is throw in a little bit of AR augmentation. Like standard OSD is absolute garbage on the quads we fly.
Yep.
And you could do some fun stuff, some AR game overlays. Like, why not fly your drone around and shoot at aliens or something?
Like a dogfight?
I have cheap drones from 6-7 years ago that had AR overlay games built in.
Whoa. Oh,
yeah.
Are you talking like the Parrot, like Bebop drones and all of the other stuff that came out?
I had quite a few of those, and they had all kinds of games and stuff built in, and it was cool. It was a whole nother element. Like,
I feel like it was more like before its time. I feel like it came out
barely
way too
functional.
quickly.
The tracking was all over the place. But if you combine that same idea with current tech, like the race skates, why have real race skates when they could just be virtual race skates? There's certain things you could do that would.
I do have a very valid point for race skates, because I do race. I was in DCL for 2 years, and then I went to DRL for about 1.5 years before I went solo. And with DCL, they do have virtual like race skates that you can hit. And yeah, that's nice for timing and all, and obviously gives like a better perspective for the audience. But for us, the hit window is so small that I sometimes missed it completely. With physical race skates, I know what obstacle I'm going to be flying around, especially if I'm going to be running like a 6S monster that's going to be pulling a shit ton of power from it. I need to know that spatial awareness of an actual hardware, gate, because then I can negate, if I cut it close just a little bit more, I can kind of get away with it, but I have the risk of crashing. And with digital, it's nope, you didn't hit it at all. You got to go back and hit it again. It's like, I
know, but on the small scale for a tiny boop race, how fun it would be to just go to your friend's house, you press a few buttons, and some virtual gates pop up in the room with some like QR code trackers that you just like stick on the wall and on a table, and there's some.
Why haven't anyone
elements.
done that? That is a pretty ingenious idea to something like that. No one take that, by the way.
Because all these companies would have to get together. You can't have multiple standards. It would have to be one platform, one lead on that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like I have the Oculus Quest 2 right now. That thing is incredibly good for how simple and inexpensive it is. The optics, everything in it are excellent. The positional tracking is amazing for what it is, but it's still horribly inaccurate. You're holding that controller and it's just like shaking like this on the screen. It's kind of makes you sick almost.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that Oculus software sucks.
Like external sensors, or is that the one that has all the sensors built into the face?
It's all inside out tracking, so you only wear goggles and it's self-contained. You can also hook up to the HDMI over USB-C and use it like a traditional Quest.
Yep, you can do that too.
Or I mean, traditional Oculus. That's like a feature they worked back into it, which was
That is
not
cool.
a feature that was sold with, but they figured out how to make it work, which is pretty neat, you know.
I will
I
say
do
that
find it neat. Yeah.
a lot of the move towards, I don't know if you call them docks or what, but the fact that USB-C can be used for multiple different types of media to go into one computer is super nice. By the way, the fact that you can get power, video, input, all this stuff just through USB-C is like we're converging again, instead of like having kind of what Trekius was saying, like, yeah, oh great, another standard, but now it's kind of converging down to USB-C, and I hope that
Oh,
keeps
even
going.
more now because Europe is forcing
Yeah, I
Apple
was
to
just
put
going to bring that up.
USB-C in, which makes sense because it's the same standard. It's USB-C can do Lightning, it can do FireWire.
Thank God.
There's no need for whatever Apple calls their dumb looking plug.
I
Yeah,
personally have been against the Lightning connector ever since it came out because it is as nice as it is to have an ecosystem that just works with the Lightning connector. It makes things immensely difficult when you're trying to use other forms of outside media that Apple doesn't make. It just makes things so much more of a headache.
that's kind of Apple's bread and butter, though. It's like, hey, we have our own little walled garden, and everything inside of it like plays nicely with each other, but everything outside of it is like, well, hey, I hope you have really smart friends on GitHub that can make an Apple app for it, and that's kind of the end of it. But we'll see. I mean, maybe that's going to be the. I don't know. I don't understand what the use case is for Apple's. Like, if they were able to make largely scalable environments, okay, that I could kind of understand. But like, when's the
Maybe,
last
but
time
even then,
Apple
that's
had a
negligible.
server? Like, does Apple make server operating systems?
Nope.
Do they have?
They do not anymore.
Like, then
They have in the past.
yeah, I don't know. I think that okay. So I'll preface it by saying this: I don't know much about Steve Jobs, and was he part of that whole
He's
like?
dead.
Yeah, I know that he's dead, and he wore his black turtlenecks, and that's all I know about him. But like, since his passing, like, yeah, the iPods were cool, iPhones were cool. Is Apple kind of circling the drain now that they're just the expensive brand, or are their phones just keeping them afloat? I don't
I
understand
personally
how they're still
don't
making money.
think that they're. I don't think that they're circling the drain. They're very close to getting into a vortex. That I do agree with you on. But what I think is keeping Apple alive right now, especially with modern standards, is Goldman Sachs, which is one of their business partners for the Apple Pay and their Apple Card. They can charge an interest rate. I think it was something crazy along the lines of like 56.8% APR or something like that. And they can do that for new customers that they don't trust or just randomly decide to flag for whatever reason. And they make immense amounts of payments. And last I checked, there was over like 6.5 million active users that still utilize Apple's card from day one launch. And it's only grown exponentially since then. And I think that's where they're mostly getting their main source of income from, is getting those kickbacks back from Goldman Sachs. Which,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Apple is more like Google than it is like Samsung or LG, or they're not just
Agreed.
making computers; they are making ecosystems. Just wait, they will have their VR headset, and you know what? It'll probably be better than all the rest of them, and the software side of it will probably be more functional because it'll be a closed system, a very closed system, like everything else.
Yep.
But it'll also be expensive, and people aren't going to adopt it widely. Just future prediction here based on every single other product that they have ever created having the same kind of market. Like, they're neck and neck with Samsung, but that's just two of the other. Then there's another 1,000 companies out there that make the same products.
right.
Like,
But when you think of smartphone, unequivocally, you think of either one of three brands: Google, Samsung, or Apple. That's just the way that
and Windows Phone.
that's just the way. Well, oh god, don't even get me started on Windows phones. Ugh.
You can still get that operating system to virtualize. So
Hey,
so
you
Microsoft
can
has
still
this
buy a
thing.
Nokia, but who would?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, whoa. Hold on. Pump your brakes, Mr. Disk. First off, I'm looking at buying a Nokia because I really only use my phone for the only productive thing that I use my phone for is making phone calls, and everything else is literally games or distractions. And I already have
I
like
don't play
2
games on
unbuilt
my phone,
decks.
and I still have a modern day like smartphone that's got like a nice camera and display. It doesn't mean that I need it. It's just that it's there when I
Yeah, why
it's
would
kind
I
of
play a
like
game on my phone? Why would I want to like it's kind of
it's yeah. That's why that's literally why we're building decks. We make our own cyber decks so that we can literally make a solution that not only works at home, not only works in the field, but you can literally take it wherever you want, does whatever the fuck you want it to do, and it's because you made it do it that way. It's literally designs on decks is quite literally the reason why I joined. It's because I want to make something that has one sole purpose, and that is to be the jack of all trades machine that I have been needing ever since I got like my first ever laptop. Because a laptop can only do so much, but if you literally build and configure a deck with the hardware that you choose, it does exactly what you want it to because you picked out the parts. There was no third
right.
party.
It's
you know.
almost like the old industry specific hardware. You know, you needed
Exactly.
a control box for your new CNC that your company just invented. So then they would, so then they'd build some computer onto the side of it. You'd have a screen and a keyboard and a tower and all this stuff going on, and it'd be customized and, it'd have that purpose. Well, now companies take a Raspberry Pi module and drop that into a custom carrier board that has all the functions that they need without having to design, everything, all of the
Exactly.
important parts. They can do all the simple parts, send it out to, JL PCB or whoever, and, get a product back. It's kind of it's a very interesting place to be in. Right now, we've got all those part shortages and, price increases. So making your own board has become kind of, you can design it, but you're probably not going to be able to get it manufactured anywhere because one place doesn't have every component in stock. But there have been
Cypress
a few.
Electronics has been one of the bigger examples of that. They've just been taking massive hits ever since the beginning of the silicon shortage. It's just been nonstop BS with them.
So Swarm, you said you wanted your deck to be the jack of all trades, but that seems like quite a tall order. Like that to me sounds like it's going to have every input like form factor in that. It's just going to be like this biblically accurate angel, but instead of eyeballs, it's going to be different ports that like are of some obscure like what Harry was saying.
They are going to
like
be
DVI
obscure.
And HDMI and all these.
It is going to be obscure, and that's essentially the point of why I'm making my deck, because it literally has standards that I use but no one else uses. So, for example,
I have something similar to that. Like I have USB adapters for everything I can think of, every kind of obscure standard, any kind of input output that I need. I have a USB dongle, usually on like an 8-inch cable with some giant plug on the end of it. And that gives me, you stick all those in a bag, you have like 20 of them, you can hook up everything to basically anything at this point, your cell phone, your tablet, your laptop, your cyber deck, it's
I've
nice
just never been a fan.
Kind of
yeah, I just have never been a fan of the whole USB like expansion with like hubs and stuff. I feel like the one thing that I will say is that USB-C is going to be heavily utilized on my deck. That's the one thing that I'm going to make this, mention. I'm going to be using USB-C a lot on my design. But it's also going to have connectors that some people don't use every day. But since I'm a drone pilot and an FCC licensed operator with a 02 clearance, I have to have hardware on me that has very arcane and bizarre connections. One of them being the infamous G51 or 6-pin NATO connector for audio data and communications with like Harris and different company radios like Thales and everything. I have radios that can do like PN encryption, but it would be nice to see on a computer, or in my case the deck, exactly what frequency that I'm dialing in on, because I can hit frequencies all the way from 1 megahertz all the way up to like 6 gigahertz. and I need to have those ports on hand because I can literally swap in hardware that I'm going to use for a specific job, and it's just there ready to go. That's what it's going. It's going to be tactical. It's going to have some form of horsepower under the hood, but it's not going to be
Now,
over the top to the point of where I'm
what
going to need
is
a briefcase
the
for it.
actual connection interface between that to the computer? Like, is it still connecting over USB?
USB to TTL.
Okay. So for that, I mean, I don't know. In that case, I think I would build a suitcase that your laptop sits on top of, and the laptop has all of everything in it. You know,
Like a Pelican case or something?
yeah, like in a way that the deck is the, it's that interface box. The computer then becomes whichever one you happen to have on you, whichever one, you keep upgrading, you obviously you want more horsepower, more capability, battery life, whatever. But then this box is this self-contained, field kit that you bring out with you, that can always just plug into whatever, maybe you even just plug it into.
I guess
one
I've
of
just
these.
haven't given it much thought. I guess I've been more focused on getting stuff that I would need on a rapid deployment basis, stuff that I
No,
would
it doesn't mean
connect
you
to
couldn't
and-
have a Raspberry Pi in there and a display and a Bluetooth keyboard or whatever you could still have that in it, but also the ability to connect out to a more capable box, bigger
Yeah.
display, something that's more practical.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense. Like professionals used to build their own tools. If you were a woodworker, you carved, you ground your own tools for the lathe. You built what you needed. I've worked in the IT industry for way too long at this point. And probably the worst part was never having one of those stupid DB9 to RJ45 connectors.
Oh my God. That
the
is
light blue one. You know the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
It's
That
like, oh, hey,
sky
where's my
blue-
cable? And you're like, oh, someone borrowed it. Cool. Well, we have one. We have
It's the
one on the
10mm
truck.
socket of the IT world.
And now you gotta drive
DB9 is a
back to
standard
another
that
system.
gives me Vietnam flashbacks, bro. Oh.
So okay, but kind of what I think would be cool for your deck, Swarm, and this might be before you joined the Discord. Maybe a year or two ago, we had this huge discussion over like what connectors look the coolest. And have you seen the 60-pin military aviation connectors before? Where like
I have, yeah, the 60-pin MILAV connection from Wilco. Yeah, I remember. I saw that and I was like, "Holy shit! Look at all those contact points!
Yeah.
Damn!"
that would be cool. I think that would be way cooler than having like 4 bajillion ports. Is like you just have one port and it feeds into all of your accessories. Like
You would have to custom wire it for sure. Yeah, you would
Well,
have to have
yeah.
a pigtail harness and stuff to like adapt it to. But yeah, I would not be against that. I just
Yeah, and every time you add a new thing, you just add it to a few more pins on it. Like
that's what I'm saying.
So all the pins are all active, connected to all the hardware in there, and then just like different pigtails for each.
I'm gonna have to add both of you up on Discord and kind of get like a friend request thing going on here in discussions, because your idea really actually, I didn't even think about it, and the fact that you guys just came up with something like that on the fly, just have it ready. I would much rather have you guys as friends rather than just being someone I joined in on a stream with.
What's the channel though? We have a channel I think specifically for connectors. Bring it up there, man. Like if you friend request us two, you're gonna get 2 people's opinions. If you throw it out to the community though, you're gonna get people that have been like working on this kind of thing for 20 years. I'm not saying don't send us the friend request. I'm saying like make it a public thing, make it a
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, deal. But
I'll have to like look for it. But I remember what you're talking about. It's just gonna take me a little bit of time so I can like actually find it.
Now I think a way to improve on that kind of connector would be I'm a huge fanboy for the magnetic power thing that I will give Apple credit for that. Like the magnetic
MagSafe.
What's it called?
MagSafe.
MagSafe. Give Apple credit for that. They didn't come up with it.
Well, I thought it was one of their laptops that was the first one to use it.
No, OG MacBook 2013 did come out with their own proprietary standard of MagSafe, which is essentially just a 8-pin to double USB. It was essentially a double USB header that had 4 pins on each side for both like USB connections, but they did it primarily for not just power, but they also did it for like docks and whatnot for their like own like like media cabinets and stuff, like really esoteric. But
Yeah.
On the
Yeah, but,
subject
like-
of standards, then USB 4, 4.1, 4.2, we're on to
Mhm.
USB 4 now. USB 4 devices are out there in the wild.
What?
Yeah,
I actually have one. I have one right here.
and it's a mess. They also have renamed a bunch of the older standards, and it's just
Why?
well, because more data, higher resolution, everything goes up.
Hold on, let me go look for it. I think it might be in my locker still.
So yeah, we're on to USB 4 now, and USB 4 rolls in everything, still USB 1.0 backwards compatible. Because
I do like that.
I don't. There is nothing that needs a 10 megabit connection today. All right, maybe an old keyboard.
Okay, how about those the Passport external hard drives? Like for students, and I mean, now that everything's getting bigger and bigger, let's say it's some graphic design student that has their render and they need to put it on, they need to take it from a computer at their lab in class and they need to put it on their laptop or whatever to take back to their
Okay,
their
those
room
were
to work.
never available as USB 1.0.
Hmm.
That standard didn't support, as far as I know, it didn't support external hard drives or anything like that.
All right, so I actually have a USB 4 device right here. This is an adaptation bus that Critics sells. It's like a USB 4 to SATA connector, but it doesn't just do SATA. It also does like Thunderbolt and the rest of all the stuff. Like it's like a multi-use like connection that you can just kind of slot into a SATA interface, and then the USB-C, which is obviously that little silver contact right there. That's what's going to interface for the rest of
see
the
device again?
physical. Yep. This tiny little thin blade right here. And this USB-C connection on the top is where the actual, interface shows. I can't show this side because it's got like an actual number. But this is like the archived like SATA interface, but you can tell there's a lot more bridge contacts on the front of the board than just like a normal SATA interface, because it can also do, again, Thunderbolt and the rest of the stuff.
Interesting.
And it sucks.
But you have it
I've had
because you need to adapt whatever to it.
Yep, quick swap sockets and everything. That's the one thing that I will say USB 4 is good for, is for hot swapping devices that need like instantaneous swapping.
I mean, look at the framework laptop.
Exactly.
It's all USB ports. The HDMI out on it is a USB port. Everything is over USB.
Yeah.
And while it's not, I don't think they did a very good job on that product. It is their first one, so maybe version 3 will be USB 4.0 or whatever the standard is at the time. And, just have more ports available. They just don't have enough places to connect things. You still have to hook up like external hubs, which is annoying.
I mean, there's obviously a theoretical limit to it, but at the same time, you can break out a lot of stuff with like new USB standards, especially USB like with Thunderbolt and like the newer 3.2 interface, I think is what they call it now.
Right. Well, like your NVMe drives, it could be connected over a USB adapter. It doesn't change the overall read and write speed much. Like it's slightly slower. It's not much different.
It's negligible.
Like that's how I use for moving stuff around between computers. I just have one of those little like Sabrent cases that you stick a full size NVMe drive in. It's great.
What a chat of a company. Gotta love those guys.
They keep pumping out product after product, year after year, and we keep buying it.
Every time, yeah. Every time.
Their audio cards were great.
The USB hubs.
Nobody ever.
Going back to that, the USB hubs I think are useful. I see the use case for them. You remember when whenever someone new had to present something, I don't want to use DEF CON as an example, but like any kind of conference or any kind of like large auditorium lecture setting.
DEF CON's a great example for conferences that never work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So like, imagine just being able to walk up, slot in your one connector, and that's it. Like everything is just already hooked up. It's
like
perfect.
Cyberpunk with like the personal link or whatever it's called. I can't remember specifically what they named
whatever
that
it's called, the data
or
link.
coined it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, why not? I think that's a
Although
great
it
direction
being
to
wrist
move in.
mounted is a little bit of a area of contention with me. Let's be honest, because not only is the wrist a really flexible part of the human body, there's also a lot of delicate like internals to that. Oh, like let's say for example tendons and
Well, yeah,
a
but
lot of
if
nerve
if you
endings.
get your arm completely replaced by things, like I think it's one of the more expendable appendages.
Obviously, they're using pocket dimensions to hold all the gear.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
But-
I felt the same thing with having like Linux on a thumb drive, a bootable operating system. You walk up, you plug it into almost any computer, and you boot up off of that drive. Boom, there's your whole system. There's your whole operating system, your whole computer. All of your data is with you.
But for a guy like me, that would bring
Yeah.
up a concern of compatibility for the hardware that's on the machine that you're trying to ingest, though.
Well,
And
yeah,
that's just something that I would.
you could make some effort to load every single driver package available. Like you would try to put as much compatibility into that as you could. But it was nice. It was useful for a long time. High school, whatever. I didn't have great computers. There wasn't much going on. But you go to your friend's house, you use their computer or whatever. You just bring your thumb drive. It's like, hey, cool. Here's this movie. Here's that thing that I want to show you. I'm not just going to transfer you the file. I'm going to just boot up my whole system that's pre-configured and ready to, with the codecs, with everything that you needed.
I will agree with you on that. That part is cool, I will say. Further delving into that, though, something that I found recently was and this is not new. This is new to me, but it's definitely not a new, concept. The Intel compute sticks, those like super, super skinny.
Oh yeah.
IoT device that
cool.
I can't remember where specifically I saw this, but they're making a new updated version that not only does like a USB-C dedicated output, but it has its own built-in USB-C hub as well, which makes it like super like compact. And I can't remember exactly what they said for the price, but apparently it's not going to change much from the old generation compute stick to the new one that they're making.
When Intel released those, it was kind of a failure of a product, but a bunch of other companies jumped on that form factor and then started releasing like Atom PC based compute sticks. And I have two of them myself. One of them that's kind of old and shitty, but it was cheap. And then one of them that is much more capable. It's as good as like what you'd find in any Chromebook, any, typical laptop for under $300. It does all that.
It does the job. It does the job. It doesn't need to be over the top, but still, when you need at least some form of workability, you have it.
It has an Ethernet port on the back of it too.
Okay, so I'm looking at one on Amazon.
Oh yeah, RJ45.
Right, I'm looking at one on Amazon that you can get delivered with Prime. It has 8 gigabytes RAM, 128 gigabytes ROM. Let's see here. It comes with Wi-Fi, of course, and I mean, this thing could run WoW, and it's got 2 USB ports on it.
And they're perfectly fine. And the only issue I ever ran into was getting enough power into it over a poorly made USB-C port or micro and that's not a problem with the standard. It's a problem with the quality of components they put in this box.
Right.
It's why you want to get one that's actually made by like AMD or Intel or MSI or someone that actually puts a decent thing together. These cheap ones, they're cheap. They used very inexpensive components. The plastic housing on it is that like it's that like hard brittle ABS with the shiny coating on it that chips off.
Oh yeah, and it's like it gets super greasy with like fingerprint residue too, and it just
it's that kind of thing. It's a noisy fan. It's the little details that annoy me with it, but overall as a product, it's it's just like having that thumb drive. But now I've got the whole fucking computer. and it's
Yeah,
about the same.
I feel
size.
like if there's a company that can develop something that is, you know what, I'm going to be a little bit more kind. I'm going to be a little bit more flexible with this request. If there is a company out there, and I don't know if any of them are going to watch, probably not, because we're just a bunch of nerds too. But at the same time, there's a little bit
Be
of hope.
surprised.
Yeah. What I would like companies to do is somehow find a way to make a compute stick about the same size as Intel's own, or comparable to the Roku 4K stick that you can get on Amazon. About the same. It's long but skinny enough so that you can just put it in your pocket, plug it into whatever monitor that has HDMI, and it's just ready to go. It needs to be at least comparable to the Nintendo Switch in regards for performance. The reason why I say that is because if it's able to run native Android on a handheld device, but still run games within reasonable specs or just programs that are a little bit more power hungry, then you can have something that can be theoretically toted around as your computer. And let's say, for example, you happen to have a pair of FPV goggles that have HDMI, you can literally just plug in the goggles to the compute stick and have your portable cyber deck in the form factor of no longer than like a NVMe to USB adapter.
I mean,
Something
the
along
game performance on the one I have is poor because it's just an integrated APU or whatever.
well,
it is.
right, but I'm just
But-
if it's somewhat comparable, I would be
I mean,
happy.
I have it. Like, I've got my Skyzone Cobra X. It's a 720p image. Looks perfectly fine. Nice, nice, very full view. Micro HDMI on it, or no, sorry, mini HDMI, and that just plugs into the compute stick. And that's it. You have it. You still got to do a mouse and keyboard. I find that a keyboard with a built-in trackpad is the easiest to use when you can't see what you're doing.
That's why I've got one for VR, literally right
Yeah.
here.
Nice.
Exactly, and that right there. I mean, you don't even really have to build a thing. That's just I have these devices, and once in a while I'll plug them in together.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I
I
don't
wonder if
even
that's going
use
to be
this
what things move
all the
towards
time.
is like your computer is no longer a laptop with its own display or whatever. It's just that like displays and keyboards and all that kind of thing are going to be so ubiquitous that maybe that becomes the new phone booth. If you need to sit down at a park or something, you just bring your own compute stick, you slot it in,
Actually,
and there's your whole system right there. Maybe that's what
I'm glad you
libraries turn into.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I was at the airport recently. I just got let me give you some context for how this broke down, and I'll make it quick. But I came back from a trip from New York. I was doing some stuff at a conference, being a guest speaker for Jason Tallman's Science is Unwise panel that he usually does sometime. It's a play on words for like poking fun at people who hate technology, and they bring all of these technology haters and change them to like be techno lovers or whatever. But the point is that I got back from this conference, and in JFK Airport, which was my connecting flight to my next stop, there were these booths that were about the size of a phone booth, maybe a little bit bigger so that you can actually sit down. But you go onto this like web page that they have, you scan a QR code on the box, you pay like, I think it's $9 for 2 hours or something like that. The door opens, you can then go inside of this booth, close the door, and have a completely private environment that you can like use your laptop and like make phone calls and stuff in. And it has HDMI input, DisplayPort inputs. I've seen people take their Xbox Series X's out of their carry-on and play games in these booths for like 4 hours until their next flight comes through.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of pass-through HDMI recording device they use.
They actually have transparent like shells, and it's literally just a TV that they have plugged in, and then all of the signaling is passed through to the actual TV itself. And the company has even been under like investigation before for like privacy concerns, and the CEO looked at the prosecutor and said, "Go ahead, order 2 boxes for the next federal place that you do, and I want you to have the head of your investigation team inspect it for any unauthorized amounts. If or devices. If we pass, we're countersuing you for $350 million. If we fail, we will gladly remove these things off the premises and file to close our business completely. To this day, that governor has no longer been on any public TV like interviews since then.
Well, that's good then. So they're actually making an effort to, make
Absolutely.
a legitimate product where they're not screwing people over. Now, I have seen those booths before at the airport, but they were not the privacy booths. They were karaoke machines. And when you go inside, you close the door, and no one can hear you at all. And I was thinking, I wonder if I buy this for an hour, if it's going to like force me, is it going to be annoying inside? Like, is it going to have a theme like popping up, playing a little tone, trying to get you to like buy the next song or something? Or would it actually be quiet? And like, I've considered just using one of those to have a break from the noise and the crowd of people when you're just like stuck at the airport. And as far as, having your VR goggles or, FPV goggles or any kind of HMD, it's certainly a lot more private than just having your laptop out. And depending what you're working on, maybe you just are under NDA and you really just shouldn't have what you're doing be visible to someone who might just stand behind you.
Right. Absolutely.
So, it is kind of a useful thing. And as far as ecosystems go, I hope that we move away from that everyone just makes a conscious effort to, to integrate with everybody else, or you will fail. I mean, when it comes down to it, Oculus is the best because they've been at it for the longest. They've got the most funding behind it, the most potential for success, and Facebook's not going anywhere. Let's face it. They're sticking around. They have survived all the inquisitions by the Congress, and they're not going anywhere.
I don't know, man.
Helix is going to fight you on that one.
I will.
It doesn't mean I want them to stay around. I don't use their products typically. I have the Quest 2. It's fun, but it's a toy, But, someone has to be the central point that everyone agrees, okay, we will make our stuff compatible with your stuff. We're still going to do our own thing, but we don't want to get left behind. Obviously, I like the analog nature of just FPV goggles, right? HDMI plug. Sure, it's not really analog, but you know what I mean. Yeah. You just plug it in, it just works. There's no apps to install. There's nothing to fuck with.
No drivers to fuck with. No like settings you have to do with like dip switches or whatever, or solder your own daughter boards in or anything like that. It's just ready to go.
Yeah, and hopefully we get some kind of a merger there between the two. Like, I don't even really like VR for the, looking around at stuff. I just like how immersive it is to play a game from a head-mounted display. It just blocks out the other stuff, and your brain is able to attach to it a lot
and
cleaner.
Focus more.
Yeah. So, with my FPV goggles, I'll plug them in once in a while and just use them as a display. The one thing I never do, though, is actually play the flight sims with it, because I tried it, and when you're flying, you're only up for like 4 minutes at a time. But when you're sitting there playing liftoff, you might be in the game for like 2 hours. It is a brain melter. Like, it's so hard on your eyes and, people who get a little motion sick because it's not playing back smooth. It's not like real life.
Yeah. Speaking of head-mounted displays, I just want to say I do have a index development kit. However, it is under my own possession. So before any people like, well, he's saying he's got like special hardware. I got it because I know someone. Let's go ahead and put that out there. But nice. I don't even use this for games. What I've done recently, and I'm still experimenting with this. I'm still talking to Bill Tolley, who is the main technician who actually came up with this software before. He has found a way to virtually so NVIDIA and AMD both have like a mosaic feature where you can stripe displays together and make them one screen or whatever the case may be through software. And what I've been doing is I've literally been making 6 virtual displays, like 6 virtual 27-inch monitors in VR. And I literally been doing like, a crap ton of work, and I just use it for productivity. I don't use this for playing games. I barely play games.
That's kind of the coolest. You could take that desktop setup with you. Like, you can be at the airport and have 6 full-size displays at your disposal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, without question.
It's all, but that's contingent on there being enough graphics processing power on wherever you land. Like wherever, like there's
Right.
yeah, they're not going to have a 3080 Ti just chilling in the karaoke
Well,
booth.
no, I mean,
know?
I do.
anybody can take a laptop with them that has the specs that they want. Like, sure, mobile graphics cards aren't ever quite as good, but that
They can
you
still
can buy
they
a
can still
gaming
party.
laptop. Yeah.
No, I've actually done that as well with my oh god, I don't even know what model it is. I barely use it. But no, having like instead of shelling out money for a really nice like in real space display is like, okay, I'll have my Twitch chat in one display. I'll have a VLC playing some song in another display, and I can like look around and it's all over the place, and it actually feels
funny
like
you
I've
mentioned
created
that.
my own office without as much like hardware clutter, which is super cool. Like,
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny you mentioned that because a lot of VR like streamers will do that. That's literally what that's literally what they'll do is exactly what you just mentioned.
yeah, and I don't even show my face on stream anyway. I might just start doing that like and play like less graphics intensive games. Like I still play Titanfall 2.
You
Like,
could stream
why not?
yourself wearing the goggles and just like add like a little Oni mask thing, like
Like a
to the bottom
balaclava
of
or
it.
something.
No, just
Yeah.
like some like monster thing. Just have it like magnet onto it, so you can actually block
Ooh.
your face.
Ooh.
I do like that. But then
This
we're like
is why
one
I
step closer
joined
to,
this
like,
server. This is why I
killing my
joined this
face.
community.
Yeah.
The
And
only
then, well, that
time
actually means that
Helix's
I'd have to
face-
stream consistently too, and that's
The only
That's
time we've
actually-
seen Helix's face is with all the like tracking dots and like completely blown out like white coloring, and
Yeah.
we still that one brief moment of technical difficulty, and nobody could still see you at all. Like that was
Yeah.
pretty funny.
But now you
He's
guys have
still
my face
freaked out,
tracking
though.
dots, so
Oh, gee, like we're gonna utilize that to open your Face ID on iPhone. Yeah, like that's gonna happen.
yeah. And actually okay,
He's
so
like,
I know my tinfoil hat's on pretty tight, and if it was any tighter, then it would be in a 50 Shades movie. But like this, I specifically turn off any sort of biometric for authentication, and this is actually one of the topics that I want to talk about too. But like, anyway, like we can save that for another episode. But I'm just gonna say it now. I don't like biometrics for authentication because you can't change it.
Yep.
And like that's why I don't open my phone
that
with my
is
face,
true.
with
It
my
is a
thumbprint.
permanent thing.
Yeah. Anyway,
Like, well, I will say, last time I was at the airport a couple weeks ago, excuse me,
You're good.
someone took the fast pass line, and they have someone there to help you operate the machine. They're like, okay, like touch your hand here, okay, do this, and then like, okay, look into the thing, and you're looking into a dual retinal scanner that's also doing a biometric scan, and the machine would not
I've seen
read,
those,
but it
yeah.
wouldn't read the person's eyes. She kept having to try over and over again, and the person's like, all right, here, try doing this, like, and having her like open her eyes like this and like take the glasses off. I was just like, this is just terrible. It's terrible on so many levels because the machine doesn't work. That's the main problem. Can't even imagine how much they paid for those machines. And you're letting
them
your entire identity be scanned by a third-party company that has a contract with the airport. It's not like they are the US government scanning it. It's just some random company. Who knows where that data is stored? And you know that they're a target for breach. I mean, just imagine getting that data and being able to then fake people's biometrics.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like that data exists somewhere,
Yeah, like could you raise a bigger sign saying like hack me, I have valuable data, as like then being one of those people at an airport with
in pen test environments, we call that a really big sore thumb.
Yeah. But
all right, guys. Well, we let's wrap it up. We've been going for a while now.
Sounds good.
Been a fun stream, and we will do this again sometime. We do this always again sometime. It's never really scheduled more than like an hour ahead of time, but
hey, I gave a week's notice this time, or most of a week's notice this time.
You did, and it shows. More people are watching, so
might be onto something here.
I would love to be a guest for you guys again at some point. I love discussing nerdy stuff with you guys, and trust me,
you're still on your probationary period, Swarm.
We'll have to see.
You're not.
Maybe on technical difficulties, but for FPV, we should do a quad stream. It's been a while since I've done one.
would be cool.
Absolutely, I would love to.
Are we gonna play our outro video?
I have not located it recently.
Okay. An episode of Ghost
Stan.
in the Shell is fine too. I mean,
Yeah, let's do that. Let's end every episode with something copyrighted. Make sure that we are demonetized. I
Yeah,
want
totally.
to be. Actually, if we could just get to 1,000 subscribers so that we could get demonetized, that would be fantastic. It's a life.
I'd
goal
almost
right there.
be prouder of us getting demonetized than us actually making any money off of it.
Well, that's
So
my
you're
point.
now
We
a-
got to hit 1,000 subs first, so that we have the opportunity to get monetized, so that we can then immediately be demonetized.
Or should we play
Just
the
for
long
shits
game
and giggles.
and go for the 1,000,000 and they like mail us the little play button and then we can and then we turn that into a deck. Oh, that'd be so cool. And then we get demonetized. Yes. Someone call
I
CD
fucking
Projekt
can't
Red.
with you guys.
Yeah.
I can't with you guys. I'm out of here. I can't.
All right.
I swear.
Well, that does it for episode 27. Thank you all 5 of you that are watching. Or 4 of you.
Yeah.
I'm one of the people. But stay safe out there.
Goodbye.
Not everyone.